Okay. All right. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We are getting ready to get into our weekly Midrash. We are continuing on with our walk through the Torah. We are on our triennial journey. We are now in the book of Numbers. And today we're going to look at Numbers 20, 21, and maybe John 3 and 4. We'll see how far we get. And we are going to be dealing with the spirit of Esau. The spirit of Esau. We'll talk about what that could be. What are some of the characteristics of Esau? And things that we could look at to kind of characterize this particular spirit. All right, so we will do that. First, we will look at, I want to go ahead and read Numbers chapter 20. Yeah, we'll read chapter 20. We'll kind of do a little overview of 21. Let me pull it up, chapter 20, so we can have something to look at here. Here we go. I want to pull up Numbers. Numbers chapter 20. We'll go ahead and look at that. What version is this? This is the scriptures. That's good. Go ahead and start reading that there.
Then came the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, into the desert of Zin in the first month. And the people abode in Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried there. And there was no water for the congregation. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And the people chode with Moses and spake, saying, Would God that we had died when our brethren died before Yahweh. And why have ye brought up the congregation of Elohim into the wilderness, that we and our cattle should die there? And wherefore have ye made us to come up out of Egypt to bring us in unto this evil place? It is no place of seed or of figs. It is no place of seed or of figs or of vines or of pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. And Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of Elohim appeared unto them. And Elohim spake unto Moses, saying, Take the rod and gather thou the assembly together, thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water, and thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock. So thou shalt give the congregation and their beast strength. And Moses took the rod from before Elohim as he commanded him. And Moses gathered before the congregation together before the rock, and he said unto them, Hear now, ye rebels, must we fetch you water out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly. And the congregation drank, and their beasts also. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, Because ye believed me not to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. This is the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel strove with Yahweh, and he was sanctified in them. And Moses sent messengers from Kadesh unto the king of Edom.
Let's stop right there. Let's look at those first 13 verses there before we go any further. Because again, we want to be able to identify this spirit of Esau. First of all, let's do this. First of all, when we look, let me put this over here. Put this on this one. Let's go down to here. Oh, wait. We need the Bible and we need the dictionary. Got a little bigger. Okay, so Edom, we know, is Esau, right? The people of Edom are the descendants of Esau. Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau, right? The twins, the brothers. One was called Jacob and the other was called Esau. So the people of Edom are the children of Esau. Edom really came from, I would say, the another name for Esau, which was the given name of the son of Isaac. That name, which actually means rough. Esau means rough, right? If we look here, let's look at this. Edom, which comes from, we don't want to. We want to see Esau. We want to see. We want to see. Where's my search at? Oh, here we go. We want to look at Esau. There it is, 62:15. Esau. Esau, look, it means handling rough. That is sensibility, sensibly felt. So when you're able to feel something through your senses, something that's sensibly felt, something that's handled, right? In the sense of handling, is rough. Esau, he came out, he was hairy, and he was rough. That is sensibly felt. So when we think about Esau being named after, hey, you want to being named after these things that are related to the senses, these things that cause you to think about handling or touching or feeling, right? Esau, just in the name, is giving you the context of, our physical feelings, the way that we interact with the things around us, our sensibilities, hearing and touching and smelling and tasting, right? Which we are able to connect with what? With, carnality, with our human experience, right? So we have the one son who is Esau, right? Jacob, who later is called Yisrael, is the one who strived with Elohim, right? He's the one that strived with Elohim. So then with Jacob, you see that there in the name Israel, there's a name that, the name points us to that spirit mind, right? The spirit mind. So we're able to see within Jacob and Esau, or Israel and Esau, we're able to see both the mind of the spirit, to be spiritually minded, and with Esau we see the connection with being carnally minded. So if we look now, if we go back to Numbers, and well, actually not necessarily back to Numbers, but back to looking at Edom. Let's see, down to 14. Edom is right here. Okay, Edom, right? From 122, which means red. Edomites, red, Adam, which has the exact same spelling here with different vowel markings. But we want to focus on this idea here, this ruddiness, right? We talked about ruddiness last week when we dealt with the red heifer, right? And we know when we look at that red heifer, it has the look of red clay. It has the look of earth. When we think about the fact that Adam, which essentially this is what we're looking at here, Adam is what we're looking at there, which is, the same thing we're looking at here, which this is a derivative of Adam. So when we think about that red, when we think about that ruddiness, we think about what? The earth. We think about the earth and that which comes from the earth, the ground, right? So we're able to see whether we're talking about Esau or we're talking about Edom. We're in both of those names. It's not as if we see like a transformation like we see with Jacob and Israel. we look at Jacob, Jacob goes from the supplanter, right? Jacob goes from the one that's grabbing the heel, that's trying to trip you up, to trip you up or hold you back. He goes from having this negative connotation connected with his name to being a prince of Elohim, or striving with Elohim, right? But Esau goes from being this one who's rough and gets his name from his the way that he feels, from that to going to Edom, which is dealing with ruddiness and earth. And also because of the fact that he sold his birthright for this red stew. So it was a manifestation of his ruddiness, his earthiness, a manifestation of his earthiness for something that looked like earth in its ruddiness. Right?
And Edom is a form of Adam.
Adam, it's the exact same letters, different vowel points. Right? So it's a form of it, right? It's a form of it. Yes, exactly. So we said
Adam came from the earth, literally.
Right. He came from the mud, from the clay, from the earth. Right. So he was ready. Right. Not pink. Right. I never seen any pink earth.
Yeah, me neither.
Right. Okay. So we're saying all that just to say, as we look for the characteristics of the spirit of Esau, we're looking for things that cause us to be connected to our carnality and the earth and the ground, right? So let's take this, move it over here some, and let's look at this now. So when we go back up here, we go back up, and let's look at what these people, what they've done here. So we have the death of Miriam, of course. She was buried there in Kadesh. And this is where they were, in these plains, in these mountainous ranges of Kadesh, right? So, and there was no water for the congregation, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And it says the people chode. The people chode. So let's look at this here. Chode is this word, rube, right? Probably to toss, that is grapple. To wrangle, wrestle, right? To hold a controversy, to chide, complain, contend, debate, rebuke, right? So these people had all of these problems with Moses, and they chode against him. When you think about debate, right? You think about debate. Let's put this over here. When you think about debate, what do you do when you debate? You come up with these arguments, right? And these points, and you find all of these, like, you can get into a debate, and part of debating is finding all of the faults with a particular thing, right? Either you're the
other side.
Yeah, you're finding all of these faults or points that are against the other side, right? They're for your side and against the other side, right? So when we look at this word, we see that it says this verb means to conduct a lawsuit or legal case, and all that it involves, right? When you think about having a case, you have all of these different evidences to prove your point, right? You want to prove your point. You want to bring all of your points against the other side. So now when we look over here at the people who chode with Moses, that's what they was doing. They was bringing their points against Moses about all of the things, all of the terrible things, all of these terrible things that they were experiencing here in this wilderness, right? So first of all, when we look over here at verse 3, where it says, "Would Elohim that we had died with our brethren," when our brethren died before Yahweh.
So they want judgment. They're saying we could have just had judgment when they had judgment. Yeah, Yahweh made a mistake because when he killed those other people, he didn't kill us too.
Well, I guess you could look at it like that and say, yeah, that would be an observation of kind of the thought process that they were exhibiting.
That's just iniquity.
I mean, you're right, but the first thing
should have been judged when they got judged.
So you saying that they actually would rather have judgment against them, be dead,
than be in the wilderness,
than be experiencing. They're alive. Their quality of life maybe might not be exactly what is something that they like, but at least if they was dead, they'd rather be dead than to be experiencing what they were experiencing.
And that to me is just evil, because I mean, you think about people who have like cancer or something. Literally, their body is getting eaten from the inside out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who has like a serious illness, they would rather be dead than alive, maybe because they're suffering so much. But when we read later how Yahweh says that he tested his people in the wilderness these 40 years, it wasn't so that they would die at the end. It was so that they would be able to enter into the promise. Okay.
Right.
So to me, it's like them saying they would rather have judgment that's the reward for evil,
Well, yeah.
That's not what the Most High had for them at that time.
Yeah. So we see that going on, right? We see the fact that they're calling the judgment of the discretion of the Almighty into question by saying, you don't know what you're doing. Why'd you bring us out here in the wilderness? We're sitting up here dying of thirst. You brought us out, verse 5, why you brought us up out of Mitzrayim to bring us to this evil place, not a place of grain and figs and vines and pomegranates, and there's no water to drink, right? But I wanted to look over here at if only we had died when our brothers died, right? They are identifying, they're connecting with those that died. But when we think about the character of those that did die, the people that died, it wasn't as if they died because of some they wasn't in some righteous, they didn't die in a righteous way. They died in iniquity.
They died in their own sins.
Yeah. So as they identify with those people, they're also identifying with the actual reason that they died in the first place, which was sin. If they wasn't out there being sinful and being disobedient and rebellious, they wouldn't be dead in the first place. It wasn't like they died because of the treacherous desert that they was in, the wilderness. It wasn't like the wilderness
or dehydration killed them.
Yeah. It wasn't like the perils of the wilderness,
or maybe a warrior in war when they was fighting against the Ammonites,
or any of that.
There wasn't any. They're not looking at those people who died for a righteous cause, but people who literally was judged.
Wait, did that people die when they was fighting the Amalekites?
I don't know if they died. No, I'm saying that if somebody died while they was a warrior or something.
Yeah. So I wanted to just look at, first of all, in verse 3, with, these people who are bringing up these accusations against Moses. Those people the first thing they do is identify, call themselves brothers of the ones who have died. All right, so let's look at this real quick. That's verse 3. Brethren, right, is ak, right? Meaning brother. The word is used. Let's look at the Strong's. Using the widest sense of literal relationship and metaphorical affinity or resemblance, another brother, kindred, like other, and comparing, right? So they were dealing with really the commonality between the people that died and themselves. So we're able to see that in their minds, they were looking at something that was connecting them, but also in their actions. In their actions, they're definitely connecting themselves with those that died, because they're doing the exact same thing that caused those people to die in the first place, which is this whole idea of choding against Moses. Right? They call into question the mind of the Almighty when they sit up here in verse 4 and talk about, why have you brought us into the wilderness that we and our cattle, everybody's dying out here? As if it's the wilderness that's killing the people. We talked about this before in terms of the mind of the wicked. With these people who are, by the way, being very carnally minded, right? They are not in tune, they're not in touch with the Spirit of the Almighty, with his plan, with his workings, right? So the only thing they could think about is what? Those things that are connected with their sensibilities.
The things they could touch, the things they could see, the
right.
things they could experience.
Right. Which is what we're talking about, the spirit of Esau.
This is interesting to me, because the people experience Yahweh through like judgment. Like, they experienced him through a belt. You know what I mean? But that wasn't enough. So instead of them thinking about the fact that they're experiencing him, they're just thinking about this wilderness that they're in. And they're thinking that that thing is what's judging them. Like, this isn't even, like, to me, I wasn't there, so I didn't experience the wilderness. But the wilderness isn't the judgment so much as it's, you know, they wasn't going to be in the wilderness that long if they would have went into the land.
It wasn't even the means by which they were judged.
Yeah.
They were in the wilderness, but it wasn't as if the wilderness was killing them.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Like, nobody probably, I should say, died of dehydration.
Nope.
No one died of hunger.
Nope.
Everybody, the Bible talks about the shoes not wearing on their feet.
Deuteronomy chapter 8. Let's flip over to Deuteronomy chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 8. Man, this is like pretty interesting when you think about this here. Deuteronomy 8. Yeah. Just looking at this, starting from verse 2, where it says, "And you shall remember that Yahweh your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness with a purpose." What? To humble you, to prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not. So this is a righteous cause, right? He's testing the relationship. He's not trying to utterly destroy his people, right? He's trying to humble his people, to prove them, and to know what is in their hearts, and whether or not they will guard his commands or not. Verse 3, "And he humbled you, and he let you suffer hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by," like, this is the point. I want you to be able to know about things from a spiritual perspective and not a physical perspective. You don't live, it says, you don't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Elohim. I don't want you to be carnally minded. I want you to be spiritually minded. And this wilderness is going to teach you that. I'm going to put you through these carnal tests, these physical tests, and see if you allow these carnal tests to sway your judgments, right? But verse 4 says, "Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your feet swell for 40 years.
I have swollen feet, swollen ankles.
40 years? I'm just 42. I wonder how many pairs of shoes that I had to go through in my life." Huh? You know what I mean? Shoes, if I had one pair of shoes that I wore every day for 40 years, well, first of all, your size changes, right? That's one thing. But as far as just wearing shoes, if I wore one pair of shoes for a year even.
I think about your boots, how they get messed up.
Yeah, over time, they wear down.
Those boots cost a lot of money.
Yeah, they do. But the point is that walking through life in a pair of shoes, they were miraculously yeah, this was miracles that was going on in their preservation, but the people, because of their focus being on other things, they were able to look and find problems with what was going on, right? Which again is an example of the spirit of Esau and this carnal mind. Okay. All right, so let's look at this. So now we're looking at the fact, we're able to look and see that these people were definitely exhibiting and manifesting the spirit of Esau, because their thoughts, their intentions were based on carnality, right? There wasn't supposed to be grain and figs and vines and pomegranates where they were. That was the place where they was going to. So for them to sit up there and talk about, well, we're in this place that don't have grain and figs and vines and pomegranates, well, nobody never said that stuff was going to be there in the first place.
That's just like somebody saying, I should have a mansion and a 5 cars and cars that have air conditioning. They don't like me. You know what I mean? Like, I should have like all of this stuff while I'm living on this earth and walking through this earth. And if I don't have it, then there's a problem.
Right. With the Most High.
With him, yeah.
But
that's the prosperity message, right? People wanting to have stuff in the physical sense of it on the earth.
And thinking, not that you can't have things on the earth, but thinking that and blaming the Most High, like he don't know what he's doing, because you don't have those things. Yeah. When that's clearly not the case here. Yeah. Okay, so we're able to see in the people, without a shadow of a doubt, the spirit of Esau. Right? These people are not being spiritually minded. They don't know the mind of the Most High. They don't understand the overall plan. They're repeating the things that that their brethren, as they say, just got finished doing.
It's kind of like if I see somebody do something and I see the result that they do, then I try to do it and I expect there to be a different result.
Yeah, we call that insanity, right?
I mean, it's like, I see somebody go out here and, for whatever reason, you gotta present. I see what other people do, and then I think I'm going to do the same thing, and it's not going to happen like that for me. And I just, I see that with the people of Israel in the wilderness. They literally thought over and over again that they was somehow going to do things and not have the same result happen.
Yeah.
But these people actually said they wanted the result to happen. I don't know.
Right.
They said they wanted to die.
Right. They might as well have died. So again, when we think about the fact that is what they're setting up, they're saying, why can we say, what brings them to come to these conclusions of being dead than being in the wilderness?
Because they don't want that spiritual refinement. They don't want the end of, they don't value the end of what they're going through.
And can we also say that these people just settled in with the fact that they wasn't going into the promised land anyway?
So the purpose of the suffering doesn't apply to them.
They've just been defeated in their in life, and then they're just ready to just be judged.
But see, that also upsets me to a certain extent, because in my mind, I think Rabbi Moshe Nu said this, that would you serve the Most High if there wasn't like a carrot dangling on a stick? Like, is it enough to just serve him because of who he is and his position, or is there a reward? Is it a necessary thing for you to have a reward in your mind for it.
I think that initially, because of our carnality, it must start off with the carrot on the stick. And then as maturity happens is where it turns into a relationship. But it don't start that way, right? The verse says that the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. So wisdom begins in you when you first have that fear and understanding who he is and how he relates to you and what he's capable of doing to you and for you. Right? So
he can reward and he can punish.
Well, he can. You could just say reward. A punishment is a reward. It's just not a good one. Right? It's still a reward, right? Whatever the case may be, we see that from a general perspective, we can look and see that the people did not understand what it was that was going on in the spirit, and were only concerned with what was physically going on.
And it don't seem like, I know that being thirsty isn't a fun thing.
Yeah.
But if you're not getting sick over it, like I think the reason that I don't want to be thirsty is because I don't want to get dehydrated.
Yeah.
But if you're not, like, when they're in the wilderness, he might have suffered them the hunger or suffered them the thirst, but it wasn't like thirsting unto death or being hungry unto starvation. It just was a temporary thing that they was going through.
But also, we're able to be sensitive about the actual physical needs of an individual, but how is it that you are responding to these physical needs? If we were just to get together and say, there's no water out here, can we get some water? Like, you was thirsty when you came up here, and I get something to drink. You wasn't like, I wish I was dead. Like, I ain't got no drink. Like, you just was like, I'm thirsty. Could you hook a brother up? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Right? So what I'm saying is that they can be physically thirsty, but why is it that this physical thirst caused them to
their ever-loving mind?
Yeah, they just totally went crazy after there was people that they literally saw do the exact same thing, and they just went and did the exact same thing. And in fact, more than just doing the exact same thing, they actually was like, well, you might as well just kill us like you killed them. So it's one thing of being thirsty, but it's another thing with the place that they took this to. Think about atonement. Think about the Day of Atonement when we afflict our souls. When you remove the power that your carnality has over you, when you remove the power of your carnal appetites, when you remove that power, you're strengthening the inner dimensions of yourself, where you're shifting the focus from the physical to the spiritual. So in all actuality, it seems as if them being in a place of starvation and needing this the forsaking of these physical things, you would think would bring them closer to the Almighty than further away.
I was thinking that because when we went to Deuteronomy chapter 8, the word for humbled in that verse is it's the same word for afflict. And when it talks about the Day of Atonement, the word is anah. And so he says that he humbled them in the wilderness, or anah, which is the same word for afflict, which is, the reason behind that is to bring us into closer relationship with the Most High.
Put a small thing of water in
that. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But so it's just like, we're humbling ourselves on the Day of Atonement. And we're so hungry, we would just rather be judged.
Are we gonna just start getting just indignant and stuff about it? Like, because
I'm so hungry, I'd rather the Most High just take me out and kill me, as opposed to,
But I think when we think about atonement, like it's the frame of mind, we're already in the mindset that we want to draw closer to Yahweh in the first place. But I think that now, because these people are they're starting off from a carnal perspective, and so then that striving for carnality then is intensified. Without that, when they don't have this food and drink, well, good food, because they did have manna, right? Okay, so let's keep on going, right? Let's keep on looking at this, because when we look at verse 6, we see what happens. It says, and then Moshe and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tent of meeting, and they fell on their faces. Right. So again, when we see this happening, it's the same thing every time. When the people come against Moses and they say these utterly ridiculous things, and Moses always, every time, he just immediately, it talks about him just falling down to his face, right? And going before the Almighty. Right. So this is the same thing here that happens. And now we have both Moses and Aaron, doing the same thing, right? So we see that they both go and fall on their faces. And if we look here at verse 26, let's look at this word. It says, and the esteem of Yahweh appeared to them. The esteem. Let's see, verse 6. The glory. The kavod. The kavod appeared to them, right? The glory, the majesty, right? Of Yahweh. So this is the same thing when we look at this word kavod, which it says properly means weight, right? Or splendor, copiousness, glorious. So we're talking about the presence of the Almighty, this heavy light. Wait, is light heavy?
Doesn't have any mass to it.
My physicist wife says that light doesn't have any mass.
Don't have any weight.
So it doesn't have any weight. But when we think about the Almighty, We're not thinking about like light that emanates from a light bulb or from fire or so on and so forth. We're talking about, again, the splendor of the Almighty, right? Who is light, right? So the very presence is they went before the presence. They went before the presence. They went from the presence of the assembly, and then they went, and it says that the glory or the splendorous copiousness, the weighty light, the unadulterated presence of the Almighty appeared unto them. Right? So they then experienced the presence of the Almighty, which is very important. They had a problem that was going on with the people. Very serious. They understood the seriousness of it. And the first thing they do is go before the Almighty. The Almighty not only hears them, not only acknowledges the fact that they're coming to him, but he literally shows up before them. He appears to them, right? And then gives them instruction, right? And he says to them, take the rod and gather the assembly together, thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak you unto the rock. Speak you unto the rock. The bar, speak to the rock, a rock, right? He literally wants words to come out of his mouth to the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water. And thou shalt bring forth, this is important too, you need to pay attention to this, and thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock. So thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. So Yahweh wants Moses to give the people water. And he's not even saying that he's the one that's giving them the water. He's saying that Moses and Aaron are going to give them water. It says speak unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water, and thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock. So thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. So it goes on and says, Moses took the rod before Yahweh as he was commanded him. So then what happens? Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation before the rock, and he said unto them, hear now, you rebels. Uh-oh. I feel like he's in the wrong already.
People wore out his patience.
Right, which is understandable. It's understandable that Moses could or should even be upset with the people and, at a loss of patience with the people because of the fact that they keep on coming back. They keep on doing the same old stuff over and over again, right? But the problem that I have here is the fact that you just came from the presence of the Almighty. You just came from experiencing the kavod, the splendor, the gloriousness of the Almighty. You just came back from that. And then the first thing out of your mouth is, hear now, you rebels. That's the first thing out of your mouth. So it was as if there was like a disconnect. There was all of this strife and choding and all of this debating and angerous things that's going on first, and then in the middle is the glorious presence of the Almighty, right? And then right back to where you was at before that. So the problem is, what I'm saying is that the presence of Yahweh actually should have chilled Moses out. He should have been chilled out at this point. I could see if he was upset going into the place, like, oh, Most High, these people, they're driving me crazy. These rebellious people that you've given to me, blah, blah, blah. And then the spirit of the Most High comes. You would think that would chill him out. But that's not what happened. He comes out and he calls these people some rebels. These bitter, disobedient, unpleasant, resistant people, full of provoking and rebelliousness. These people, right, who have a mem, the mem being water or chaos, and the resh, which is the man's head. So these rebellious people, these people who have the chaotic minds, right? These people that have this chaotic mind are coming against Moses, so much so that the presence of Yahweh couldn't even calm him down and bring him to a place of peace and tranquility. He went right back to the anger and all of this stuff that he had against these people. Again, can't say that it's not rightfully so, but looking at the sequence of events, it seems as if when he went before the Almighty, it should have taken him to a place of long suffering, right? It should have brought him to a place of mercy and loving kindness, right? But he just jumped right back in with this anger and resentment that he had toward these people, right? And then it says Moses lifted up his hand with his rod and smote the rock, not once but 2 times. Now, interesting enough, when we look at the fact that Moses was disobedient right here, this was disobedience on Moses' part. Yahweh still made water come out. Water came out abundantly. It didn't even just come out, trickled out. It came out abundantly. And the congregation drank, and the beasts also.
And the beasts too. Why you gotta say the beasts also?
Oh, that was part of their gripe. You got us out here dying and our cattle dying too. Right, so we made sure that so look at what happened here, right? We see the fact that Moses most definitely was not operating in loving kindness right here. Right? He was mad. He didn't have no long suffering for these people right here. He was upset. Right. And I'm not saying that he wasn't right for having those thoughts initially.
Yeah.
Initially.
But then when he went before the
Most High, that should have chilled him out. That should have brought balance back to his situation.
He should have allowed the Most High to change him.
Right. But he didn't. And we see what happens, right? He comes out, he don't say nothing to the rock. He wasn't even supposed to. What was he supposed to do? What was he supposed to do? He was supposed to gather the people. Let's see what he's supposed to do. He was supposed to gather the people, and that's what he did. But after he gathered the people, it didn't say nothing about speaking to the people.
So speak to the rock, not to the people. Before their eyes. He said speak to the rock before their eyes.
So he never was even supposed to talk to the people. But did he talk to the people? What did he say? He said, he said unto them, that's the first thing he do. Oh, he did gather them, but he spoke to them, and he was never supposed to even spoke to them. So we think about the fact that he's doing this thing with striking the rock. But he was never even supposed to even talk to the people at all.
Did he even speak to the rock?
And he never.
Did he talk to the rock?
No.
So he didn't talk to the rock.
Did he ever hear what Yahweh even said?
I don't think he heard what Yahweh said. I think Yahweh showed up. He experienced the kabod, but he didn't actually hear what Yahweh actually said.
Yeah, because he didn't do none of the things. He was still remembering from the other thing that they was doing whenever it was dealing with this here rock and water. But the only thing he did right was gather the people together. But after that, everything was wrong. He talked to the people. He wasn't never supposed to talk to the people. He hit the rock. He wasn't never even supposed to hit the rock. He's supposed to talk to the rock. So I'm saying, and he was still mad. So I'm saying that the whole time, he never really was experiencing the Almighty at all. Even though the Almighty was in his presence, even though he sat in the presence of Yahweh. I'm saying that he wasn't experiencing the splendor. He wasn't experiencing the glory of Yahweh. He wasn't experiencing it. And that's obvious based on what he did. He didn't do anything that Yahweh said for him to do besides getting the people together. But the actual instructions were totally not even heeded to. Nothing that he did was right. And I'm saying that it's not out of sheer disobedience. What he did was not according to the word of Yahweh. But I'm saying that I don't know how he could have even heard really what Yahweh said to do based on what he did, based on the fact that his anger wasn't receded after the experience that he had, and as soon as he came away, it was just rekindled again. And
probably when he brought all those people together, he saw their faces and was like,
and forgot though.
Yeah. And was like,
but he forgot that the Most High just gave him some specific instructions. So, saying all that just to say what? Moses
had to be thirsty too. I'm sorry.
He may have been thirsty too.
Did he have his own little stash of water?
I don't know.
You said,
I don't know. Don't say that. It just says he was in.
I'm saying he's part of the people. Like,
he is part of the people. There wasn't no water for nobody.
So he's, he's experiencing the same thing that these people are experiencing.
Right, and he's acting the same way, because what I'm saying is that Moses is exhibiting the spirit of Esau.
At this moment.
At this moment. He is manifesting the spirit of Esau. He's totally attached to carnality. He's totally disconnected from spirituality. It doesn't matter that he had some spiritual experience.
That spiritual experience.
That spiritual experience that he had did not have any effect on his actions. Right? That's the spirit of Esau. That's what happened, right? So we look here, we keep on going down verse 12. And Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron, because you believed me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. So now, because of the fact that Moses did not allow the spirit of Yahweh to affect his deeds and his actions, since he did not allow the spirit of Yahweh to change his heart and to change his mind, and because he allowed his physical desires and pursuits to rise above that of the Almighty, he, it says, will not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. When we look back at some of these things, like what else do we see that's going on? Even when he continues to speak, where he says, as for here now, you rebels, must we fetch you water out of this rock? I think in times past when I looked at that, I looked at the fact that he says, must we fetch you water out of this rock? As if he is, saying that he's the one doing it. But when I looked at this, really this time, when I looked at it, it's not a problem. It's not a problem with Moses saying that he's the one doing it, because the Most High tells him that he's going to be the one that's doing it. When you look in verse 8, where he tells him to speak to the rock, and it shall give forth water, and thou shalt bring forth water to them out of the rock, so thou shalt give the congregation drink. So in terms of from the Yahweh's perspective, what he's saying to the people is not really an issue of Moses necessarily taking the credit for it, because Yahweh's saying you're going to go ahead and do it, and you're going to give them the water. But I think it seems as if the actual thing that's going on is the fact that Moses didn't allow the presence of Yahweh to change his heart and his mind. Right? All of that anger should have been dissipated if he allowed the Spirit of Yahweh to rule when he appeared unto him. Right? So this is the spirit of Esau. This is the spirit of Esau. Total disconnect. A total disconnect from the Spirit. A total disconnect from the plan of the Almighty. A total refusal to be spiritually submitted to Yahweh and his plan. And a total trust in the flesh and carnality and the sensibilities. The spirit of Esau. Okay, so let's read now. Let's see, 14 all the way down to 21. Let's now read 14. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments about what we just was looking at there?
Just the fact that allowing your carnal thoughts and minds to have the control can keep you out of the kingdom.
Right. That's what happens. Yeah. That's exactly what happens.
And the fact that we live in this tangible world, the things that are in this world really can have power over us if we allow it to have power.
When we look at this with Moses, and we really see the underlying principles that are here, and connecting this with our relationship with Yahweh, and see Moses, who there wasn't a man in the whole world in time that was closer to Yahweh than Moses. But at the end of the day, when Moses, who, by the way, because of his closeness, the relationship that he did have with the Almighty, the bar, I would say, was raised in. So he shouldn't have been the one who was not affected by the Spirit of Yahweh. He shouldn't have been that one who was not affected by the Spirit of Yahweh, because he's Moses.
He knows the Spirit of Yahweh.
He was in such close proximity with the Almighty that it changed his physical countenance. It changed his physical appearance. That's how close he was with the Almighty. It had a physical change on his person. But these people took him to a place which, is perfectly understandable. But when he went before the Almighty, we are able to see that he didn't fully give this over to the Almighty. He never fully gave it over to him when he had that meeting with Yahweh. Because if he did, he would have been able to, it should have acted as a reset for him when he went before Yahweh. But it didn't. So, okay. So let us read 14 down through 21. Somebody read that.
I'll read it. And Moshe sent messengers from Kadesh to the sovereign of Edom. This is what your brother Israel said. You know all the hardship that has befallen us. That our fathers went down to Mizraim, and we dwelt in Mizraim a long time. And the Mizraimites did evil to us and our fathers. And we cried out to Yahweh, and he heard our voice and sent the messengers and brought us up out of Mizraim. And see, we are Kadesh, a city of the edge of your borders. Please let us pass over through your land. We shall not pass over through fields or vineyards, nor drink waters from wells. We should go along the sovereign highway. You shall not turn aside right or left until we have passed over your borders. But Edom said to him, you do not pass over through me, lest I come out against you with the sword. And the children of Israel said to him, we shall go by the highway, and if I or my livestock drink any of your water, then I shall pay for it. Let me only pass over on foot without a word. But he said, you do not pass over. And Edom came out against them with many men and with a strong hand. So when Edom refused to let Israel pass over through his border, Israel turned away from him.
Okay, very good. So we see with the actual people who are the descendants of Esau and what they do, right? Israel is in a place where it's advantageous for them to actually go through the land of Edom to get to where they're going to. But the people say, Edom say, nah, that's not going to happen. You're not doing that. You got to go some other way. But you can't come this way. Oh, and by the way, if you try to come this way, it's going to be bad for you. Right? So even though, the people, they assured them, look, if we come through, we're not going to go even by, we're not even go by where your fields and your vineyards are that drink, in order to drink from your wells. We just going to go along the sovereign's highway. We just going to go along these main thorough through roads. We just going to go through the main way that's not close to nothing that's even going to tempt us to try to take from your vineyards or your drink. That's like thinking about now, when you drive on these main highways, on these main roads, you know that there's all of these things that's close by, but they're kind of over there, right? They're kind of out of the way. Right now, we have all of these signs and postings that let you know where you're passing by all of these wonderful restaurants. If you get off on this exit, you could go over here to see this particular place. Yeah, yeah, right. So I think that would be really the equivalent of the King's Highway. You're going down this main road. We're just gonna go down this main road. We're not gonna look to the left or to the right. We're just gonna go straight through. We're not trying to cause no problems. And in the event that we was to take some of your stuff, we'll pay for it. People say no. No, do not come through. So again, when we look at these Edomites and the thought process, you know, we can see this manifestation of the spirit of Esau, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to these people that we say that, you know, we are, first of all, this is what your brother Yisrael said. It doesn't matter that we're family. It doesn't matter that we come from the same lineage. Don't matter to Esau. It don't matter to the Edomites. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we are of the same people. Right? That is not a issue for the Edomites. It doesn't matter to the Edomites that, you know, all the things that happened to them in Egypt. But when you talk about all the things that's happened to the people in Egypt, when you talk about that, you also have to think about the fact that they got out of Egypt because of the mighty works of the Almighty. And you don't even have to infer it, right? It doesn't even have to be something that's inferred, because in verse 16 it said that we cried out to Yahweh and he heard our voice and brought us up out of Mitzrayim. So now you're connecting the people, with the Creator. You're connecting the people with the Creator of heaven and earth. And in spite of the fact that the people are connected to Yahweh, Edomites, they say no. It don't matter that we family. It don't matter that we have the same origins. It don't matter that the Creator of heaven and earth is behind your cause. It don't matter. You're not coming through.
And they could be blessed. They could have just charged them to go through. They could have just been like, if you pay us so much money, then you can go through.
Yeah, they could have.
They wasn't trying to do them a favor.
Right. Even if it benefited them, they wasn't trying to do it. So, but again, when we look at this, you know, this is they're exhibiting here what? The spirit of Esau. Don't care about the spiritual plan. Don't care about those things which are connected to the Creator, those things which are connected to the Almighty and his plan and what he would have for it to be done. We are just going to carry out our plan. Regardless, right? Unwavering. This is the spirit of Esau. Total disconnect from the spirit. Totally driven from the carnal perspective. What's their gripe anyway? What they mad at?
Esau, you mean?
Yeah.
Probably that they're not getting the promised land. They just got their little portion that was to go to them. I don't know.
Jealousy.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I was. But I mean, they could have probably been blessed if they would have allowed them to come through. They just wasn't worried about that blessing.
They didn't make up back in Genesis? They didn't make up?
They kind of came together and then.
Even if it was just kind of a momentary or just for show or whatever. was there points of aggression after that? I can't remember.
There wasn't any aggression that I remember.
I'm just saying, what's the point? Like, what are they all on to? You know what I mean?
That land should be theirs, maybe. They should have gotten that birthright.
They still going back to the birthright. Whatever the case may be, the point here is that we see that what we dealing with. What we see here is this total disconnect from the spiritual plan. Okay, so when we go down, when we keep on going here, we see Hiskey read from 22 down to 29. Nice and loud.
And the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, journeyed from Kadesh and came unto Mount Hor. And Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in the Mount of Hor by the coast of the land of Edom, saying, Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given unto the children of Israel, because ye rebelled against my word and the water of Meribah. Take the Aaron of Eleazar, his son, and bring them up unto Mount Hor, and strip Aaron and his garments, and put them upon Eleazar his son. And Aaron shall be gathered unto the people, and shall die there. And Moses did as Yahweh commanded, and they went up into the Mount of Hor in the sight of the congregation, of all the congregation. And Moses stripped Aaron. And Moses stripped Aaron of his garments and put them upon Eleazar his son, and Aaron died there in the top of the mount. And Moses and Eleazar came down from the mount, and when all the congregation saw that Aaron was dead, they murmured for Aaron 30 days.
They mourned
for Aaron 30 days, even all the house of Israel.
Sound like it.
Okay, so when we look at this whole thing with Aaron, right? We see that Aaron, because of what happened, he too is not able to get into the promised land. He will not enter the land which I gave to the children of Israel, because you rebelled against my mouth at the water of Meribah. This is interesting, because when we look, this says in verse 23, and wait a second. Wait. What is this? Let me look at this. And this says, let me look at this in this version. Let me see exactly how this is worded. Okay, so it says, and Yahweh spoke unto Moses and Aaron, speaking to them both, Moses and Aaron, in Mount Hor, by the coast of the land of Edom, saying, Aaron shall be gathered unto his people. See, just the way that is written and worded, it's spoken to them both. speaking to them both, spoke unto Moses and Aaron. But if I'm speaking to like Chris and O'Day, I could say, if I'm saying something to Chris, I'm going to say your people. Right? But he's speaking to Moses and Aaron, and he says, Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, as if he's not,
Oh
he can't even like address them, you know, right away to him.
What verse is that?
24.
Verse 4?
24.
Verse 24.
23 and 24. And Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron in Mount Hor by the coast of the land of Edom, saying, Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given unto the children of Israel, because you rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah. So we have all of these pronouns here, where it's causing me anyway to try to figure out what's going on. Because it seems as if he's speaking to both of them, but he's really speaking to Moses about Aaron because of what Moses did. Because you rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah.
It was almost like he started speaking to Aaron. Like, you know,
yeah, but he's
like Aaron, he ain't going in.
No, but he's talking about how Aaron ain't going in.
Aaron's
Aaron
Aaron ain't
Aaron's
going
down in the mountain.
Oh my goodness.
They went and went up into the mountain. He told Aaron he was gonna die in the mountain. And when they came down, he died in the mountain. But what I'm saying is that in verse 24, where it's saying Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, if I'm speaking to Aaron, I'm going to say you shall be gathered unto your people.
Yeah, he wasn't speaking that.
It seemed like he was speaking to Moses.
He was speaking to Moses.
But and also to further that, when you get to the end of the verse, because you rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah, as if even as it continues on, 25, take Aaron and Eleazar his son to bring them upon Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments. He's right here. Why you can't just?
That reminds me of when he was at the doctor.
I mean, did he ever speak to Aaron?
There are times, a few times we had to search it. Let's just search it right now. I would say that there are times when he speaks under. There are a few times where he speaks under Aaron.
Well, he spoke to Aaron just right then.
It says Moses and Aaron, but I want to say that there are times where we always see where it says Yahweh spake unto Moses and Aaron. I want to say that we're able to see. You got Blue Letter Bible?
Yeah.
Look at that right now. Yahweh spake unto Aaron.
But even though, Aaron was, it says Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron, he was really speaking to Moses, and Aaron was just there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Exodus 4.
What'd I say?
Verse 27. You want to pull it up?
Yeah, hold on. Exodus what?
Exodus 4, verse 27. That's the beginning.
Yeah, it says right there, look. And Yahweh said unto Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him in the. That's the only place?
And Numbers. There's not that many places.
I don't think there was. What's the other one?
Numbers 18.
Oh, okay.
Verse 1 and verse 20.
Numbers 18, verse what?
8, verse 1.
And Yahweh said unto Aaron, thou and thy sons and thy father's house, with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary, and thou and thy sons with thee shall bear the iniquity of your priesthood.
And verse 20.
Okay, thou shalt have no inheritance in their land, neither shalt thou have any part among them. I am thy part and thine inheritance. Okay, so yeah. So I knew there wasn't a lot of places where that happened, but I knew there was a few places. But here, let's go back to Numbers 20. Dealing with the death of Aaron, where he's speaking to both of them, but it's almost as if he's given Moses the instructions on what's going to happen to Aaron, even though Aaron is obviously present. So, at very least, we could say Aaron is present, hearing what's being said, but he's speaking to Moses, giving him instructions as to what to do with Aaron. But things we wanted to deal with in terms of what's going on in verse 24, where it says, Aaron shall be gathered unto his people, for he shall not enter into the land which I have given unto the children of Israel, because you rebelled against my word at the water of Meribah. So because of what Moses did, Aaron is not going into the land. Somebody talk to me about that. Because of what Moses did, you ain't going in. Not because of what you did, but because of what he did. You ain't getting in.
I don't know. It's like something's missing.
When we go back to the beginning, we see that all the way back to 20 verse 6. Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly into the door of the tabernacle. They both went, and they both experienced the presence of Yahweh. And the esteem of Yahweh appeared to them, to both Moses and Aaron. The glory, the kavod of Yahweh appeared to them. Moses and Aaron was there. So here, Yahweh speaking to Moses, because Moses is the one who's going to be doing the thing. He's the one that's supposed to take the rod and assemble the people. You and your brother. Talking to Moses, but Aaron's involved. And here's what you do, Moses. You speak to the rock before their eyes, and it's going to give them water. So there's a plan for the both of you. Both of y'all are involved in this thing. The action's really coming from you, Moses, but Aaron is right there. So we see Moses strikes the rock. Verse 12. But Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, because you did not believe me. Therefore, you will not bring the assembly into the land. Moses here we see is not going into the land because of what he did. But they was both involved in it. They was both involved in it. So I say that when Moses struck the rock not once but 2 times, I like to think that if Moses would have just if Aaron would have just tackled Moses when he went to strike it again, Aaron would have probably been the one to take the people into the land. If he would have held him up from hitting it that second time, if he would have stopped his brother from in the midst of his disobedience, I'm saying I think Aaron would have been there would have been a book of Aaron after Deuteronomy and not Joshua, because the mission was given to them both. Moses had a bigger part to play in terms of he was the one who was supposed to speak to the rock, but Aaron was right there. And because Aaron did not keep his brother from transgressing the Almighty, because of that, he got a death sentence.
I don't know. Aaron might, remember when him and Miriam spoke against Moses? Mm-hmm. He might have been like, man, I ain't.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because we see a character trait in Aaron where he allows things to go on around him when he could stop those things. He doesn't. With the golden calf, he allowed them people to sit up there and convince him to make this calf when he could have stood up against the people. Don't know what would have happened. But he could have stood up against the people instead of going along with them. He didn't.
Or he could have just said, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with what y'all going.
Well,
I ain't gonna make
it. He could have took a stance against the people, whether it was y'all ain't gonna do this or I ain't gonna be part of it. Either way, he could have took a stance against the people. He didn't do it.
Because they say that because he said on the tomorrow, he made the calf thing, and then he said tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they're trying to say that he was like, some people say he was trying to stall it out.
Yeah, maybe Moses will come back before that goes down.
It actually happened. but he still made the calf, and then he tried to act like he didn't make it.
Like he just put
it just came out.
Yeah, he just put the gold in the thing, and then this calf came out. But so there's that. There's the sister thing that happened with Miriam, where he don't stop his sister from sitting up there and speaking out against Moses. He just sitting up there just being quiet while she's sitting up there going against Moses. Where he could have said, hold on, Miriam, just chill with all of that. You out of order. Like, he didn't do none of that. Right?
Even though it say that they both came up there.
Right, but the only one you hear talking is her, and then the only one who get the leprosy is her. He's involved in it because it mentions him, because they both come against him.
Came up.
But he don't say nothing.
It's the same thing.
He should have been like, Miriam, please, like, just don't talk against Moshe, right?
Yeah, just shut your mouth. But he don't do none of that.
He just was there.
It seemed like he did the same thing, kind of like
no, he exactly did the same thing. It does not even seems like that's what happened. But what I'm saying is that is the character of Aaron.
Right.
As of where he just sits back and don't step in for righteousness' sake. He's not standing up for righteousness' sake. And then we see this. I'm saying we see this happen with him 3 times.
Third time I was it.
3 strikes and you're out. They didn't have baseball back then, but the thought process they did have, right? Because he did this exact same thing with the golden calf, with Miriam and with this rock. The exact same thing that Aaron did was he did not stand up for righteousness.
Because he heard what Yahweh said.
He was right there. So every time we see Aaron where he has the chance, he has the ability, he has the opportunity to stop these things that are going on, he don't do it.
And it seems like it's always stopping something wrong.
Yeah.
It's not like a neutral thing. Like
right.
With the golden calf, it was something wrong. And with Miriam, she literally was going out of her mind talking about Moses and this woman and all this stuff. So that don't even have anything to do. And then trying to say that Yahweh speaks to them just like...
She was just bringing up accusations, just like just the spirit of Esau, just bringing up charges, like, oh, and you got this Cushite woman. But Yahweh speaks to, what does Yahweh speak to anybody have anything to do with who your wife is?
Just because you got that,
she just bringing up charges,
and Yahweh, he could speak to me. Just like he speaks to him, because look, he married to a Cushite woman. She's not even Israel. She's a Cushite. And so he could speak to him and he could speak to me just as much.
Same exact thing. So I'm saying that with Aaron, it's not just about what Moses did. It's about what Aaron didn't do.
Because when he saw him hit that right rock the first time, he probably couldn't jump in that fast, but
I'm saying
back up again, he should have jumped in. You saying he should have jumped in and tackled him?
I'm saying he should have stopped him from doing it, and because he didn't, Yahweh said, Moses, take him up to the mountain, take his priestly garments off him, and give him to Eleazar, and let him die in the mountain.
I mean, that's just sad.
Why does he get such a harsh death sentence? If it's just about, the consequences of what somebody else did. We have to think about Aaron's part in that situation. What is his part? I'm saying his part is just not doing nothing. Him being passive in a situation where he needed to have been aggressive for righteousness' sake. So, it's something for us to learn when we look at Aaron and the fact that he had a purpose as the high priest, as to stand in the gap for the people and for righteousness. And we see here a pattern being shown of Aaron just being passive and allowing unrighteousness to go on and, just letting it be.
That's interesting that you use the word passive, because that is kind of his character.
That's exactly what that is. He's just passive. He just let it be. But he's judged for that. He's judged for that passiveness. He's judged for not standing up and stopping Moses from doing this thing that is detrimental only to himself, because the people got the water.
Oh, that's interesting right there.
It's not even like a global thing. It's not everybody. Nobody even heard what happened. As far as it ain't like everybody knew that Moses was supposed to come and just speak to them and the water come out. Speak to the rock. As far as they know, Yahweh said hit the rock 2 times.
The water came out the same way.
Water came out. So the thing that Moses did was only detrimental to his own self. And because Aaron just sat back and did allow Moses to do this thing that was detrimental to his own self only, because he allowed him to do it, he was punished.
Well, actually, it wasn't detrimental to his own self because Aaron got killed for it too.
Well, yeah. What I'm saying is you're right. Aaron was involved in it, but I'm saying as far as it not being something that was connected to the whole nation. In fact, as far as they are concerned, everything Moses did was he didn't do nothing wrong because Moses and Aaron had an experience with Yahweh apart from the people. So as far as them, that's what Yahweh told them to do. But those people who was privy to what Yahweh actually said, Moses and Aaron, they knew what was supposed to be done. And as we talked about earlier, they did the complete opposite of what was commanded. But I'm saying when we look and understand who Yahweh is, and we know that he's a just Elohim, we can't just say, well, he's just, so whatever he did must be just. Whatever judgment that he brings, he's just, so whatever he did must be just. So even though it literally says he's gonna die because of what you did, we can't just say that it's just because Yahweh's just. And we don't have to. We can look at the sequence of events and see. We can look at the pattern that we see with Aaron, and we can see and know that this is something for us to learn from. This is something for us to be able to look to and know that the Most High, he gives us a purpose. He gives us a place in this world for us not to walk in that. Same thing with Moses. Same exact thing in terms of his crime was manifest through him hitting the rock. It was manifest through him hitting the rock. But in all actuality, when we think about what he did, it was the fact that he didn't allow the presence of Yahweh to change him. He didn't allow the presence of Yahweh to change him. Right? So when we think about Moses, when we think about Aaron, we move up into the new covenant and we think about the Ruach HaKodesh. When we don't allow the Spirit of Yahweh to actually bring about change in our lives, when we don't allow the Spirit of Yahweh to actually be the leading and guiding force in us, it seems as if we are moving towards the same fate as Moses and Aaron. And all of these things can be connected to what? The spirit of Esau. This connectedness to the physical, this disconnectedness to the spiritual. Aaron, when we look at Aaron, and what he has done, we see that he wasn't concerned, obviously, with what was the spiritual plan. He wasn't concerned with what the Most High wanted to have done. And if he was concerned, he wasn't concerned enough in order to stop Moses from disrupting the plan. We have to be at a place where, despite the things that we can physically see and touch and feel. Despite these things, in spite of those things, we move forward with what the spiritual plan is, and not allow carnality to cause us to deviate from the spiritual plan. The spirit of Esau causes us to be attached to the earth. The spirit of Esau causes us to be disconnected from the plan of the Almighty, and causes us to walk, then walk in unrighteousness. And we're able to see in, surprisingly enough as it is, the spirit of Esau in Moses, the spirit of Esau in Aaron, and in the people. Okay.
Do you think that it rubbed off onto him?
What?
That spirit of Esau.
What onto
Moses.
Oh, from the people.
And also, wasn't this after he went through and tried to deal with the Edomites?
Well, it's carnality at the end of the day. We call it the spirit of Esau because when we look at Esau again, Esau means rough according to the sensibilities, rough to the touch, right? So we can connect the sensibilities, carnality with Esau. Edom again is ruddy, it's from the earth. So both of these things being from the earth, carnality, those things that are connected to our sensibilities, both of these things are, things that can be representative, that represent carnality, right? So at the end of the day, when we look at, carnality as what it is, being this thing that's, it's embedded in us as human beings to appease our carnal, our soulish appetites. So at the end of the day, when we look, there's only so much a physical human being can take. When you think about, like, he literally just went through this exact same thing. If I gotta sit up here and go through this exact same thing over and over again, it built up so much that even the very presence of Yahweh did not cause him to relent in his anger towards what these people were doing. Even if we say that it was some righteous indignation, the spirit being in the presence of Yahweh, you would think would cause some peace to come into that situation. And unfortunately, it didn't. Okay, so that being said, do you have any thoughts or questions or comments about any of that?
Well, I was going to say Moses having the spirited indignation and going in the presence of Yahweh. I'm sure Yahweh had that same indignation.
What you mean?
Meaning that as many times as he came down and his anger was kindled against these complaining, stiff-necked people, that Moses going into that presence, he might have got a little bit of that fire.
Well, the fire that you speak of is something that's already present with Moses. Mm-hmm. We see that Moses, from the very beginning, when back in his beginnings, whenever he recognized who he was and realized that he was connected to them people that was being enslaved, when he saw that and what them people was doing to his people, he went and killed the people. Rage and righteous indignation is part of his nature. It's part of who he is. So, but when we look at the character of Yahweh, there's balance. And we see here, because of the fact that Moses and Aaron are both judged because of the imbalance, we see obviously what's lacking is the thing that brings the balance. We see that what's lacking is loving kindness. Yahweh at this point is all right with the people being mad and even talking against him. He's not even bringing judgments against the people. He understands they're thirsty, they're weak. Do this thing, it'll get them some water.
Right. Yeah, this is like the only time where, or one of the only times where he wasn't coming down like mad. Like,
yeah. It wasn't like, all right, you wicked people, I'm going to swallow you up like I just did them other people. All he's just like, okay, there's no water. I know there's no water. Here, go over here, talk to the rock. It'll give them some water. It'll calm them down. It'll bring them back into into the right mind. So Yahweh's exhibiting mercy and loving kindness here, where Moses is more than Yahweh's like, nah, you rebellious people, you rebels.
I think he's just fed up, man, at this point.
Right.
We was talking about how the people kept blaming the wilderness for stuff that for the bad stuff that was happening to them. They wasn't looking at Yahweh. They wasn't even looking at themselves.
Right.
And we was talking about how they wasn't allowing, or they was also saying they wanted to be judged like the rest of the people was. They literally lost their minds.
Well, yeah, that's the complaint of people who have been, who have gone through the fire. Like, I might as well just lay down and die. It's like, all this stuff is happening and it ain't going your way.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see nothing else. Like, oh, man, I might as well just die.
But the reason why you're looking at it in that way is because you're looking at it from a carnal perspective. You're looking at it from the perspective of your sensibilities, of the things that you could actually see.
Well, no, not my sensibilities.
Not you.
Yeah.
Not you. I'm saying the people who you're talking about.
Right, yeah, definitely. They were in their carnal mind state.
Right.
Yeah.
Only looking at what it is that you could see. Like you could only physically fathom it going in a certain way. Where when we think about it from a spiritual perspective, what we're currently seeing is not always connected to what the outcome's going to end up being.
You're absolutely right.
Even when we look at how we looked at Deuteronomy chapter 8, where it talks about their clothes being and their shoes being unscathed after 40 years. From a physical perspective, you can picture how a t-shirt, I got a couple of t-shirts that may be 10 years old.
T-shirt.
How old are you?
10.
I got t-shirts that are old as Hisky, right? But like up here, around the collar just starts to get holes and like this cuts right here and they stretch out of shape and all this, just 10-year-old clothes.
Yeah.
Right? It's miraculous to have shoes. We talked about this, shoes and clothes that's 40 years old. But when you think about it, it's only miraculous because we're thinking about it from a physical perspective. So it's the same kind of thing when we think about things from a physical perspective, which we could literally look and see that Moses and Aaron both was doing that, and they both allowed the influence of the people to be stronger than the influence of the Ruach. They allowed the influence of the people to be that driving force, as opposed to the influence of the spirit and presence of Yahweh to be the driving force. I was saying that Moses had every right to feel how he felt going into the situation, in terms of the thing that literally caused him to fall to his face and seek Yahweh in the first place. He had every right to be however he was at the beginning of that. But I'm saying outside of that, after the Spirit of Yahweh came and spoke to him and gave him a solution to the thing, and he felt the presence of Yahweh, that should have been balanced out because of that. So I'm saying that he didn't allow the presence of Yahweh to change his heart and his mind and his actions, which, if we look at Romans, where it talks about the sons, those that walk in the Spirit are called the sons of Yahweh. Those who actually allow the Spirit of Yahweh to actually be that driving force in their lives, they are called the sons of Elohim. Not just those who meet with Yahweh, but those that allow that meeting to change their lives and be that driving force in their lives.
That's interesting what you just said right there, because it's one thing, you could be a spiritual person, quote unquote spiritual, and then when something happens, when you have adversity, you could revert back to that carnal nature as opposed to allowing that spiritual nature to rule.
Right. So we see that right here. Moses was the most spiritual person that there is ever. But in the face of adversity, in that place where these people brought him to his true self, they brought him to his true soulish self.
They were.
And all he did was exhibit that which he naturally exhibits, which
he went all the way back to Egypt when he was killing that guy.
Yeah, for
it was righteous
indignation.
But he always had that righteous indignation, even when he ground up the golden calf and made the people drink it.
Yeah, y'all didn't say do that. You did not even say do that. But Moses was mad at them people.
It was extra on it.
Yeah. Moses was mad about that.
He was like, we're going to grind this.
You sit up here and drink this gold dust. Drink it. This gold dust Kool-Aid. Don't you ever.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing to look at Moses from that perspective. So you think of him, never thought of him like that.
But that's his natural character.
He got a little extra
now, when he's mixed with the presence of Yahweh, he's also called the most humblest person around, right? But we see also from his actions that there's another side to Moses. Right. Moses don't play no games.
He'll kill you,
right?
Don't mess with the people, you get killed.
But as many times as he cried out for the people not to be killed.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Did you was you here whenever we talked about the golden calf and how Yahweh said he was going to kill the people? Was you here for that?
All right, real quick. What time is it? It's 3:30. And Sabbath ain't over till 8:51. Let's look at John. I want to look at John some.
John what?
John chapter 3.
Regular John.
Yes, regular John.
Don't people go to 1 John chapter 3 a lot?
Yeah, we're not talking about 1 John. We're talking about regular John. The gospel according to John. Let's look at
You want some water? Coffee.
let's read the first let's read the first 16 verses of John chapter 3. Somebody read that.
There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. And the same came to Yeshua by night and said unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher came from Yahweh, for no man can do these miracles that thou dost except Elohim be with him. Yeshua answered and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of Yahweh. Nicodemus saith unto him, How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter the second time into his mother's womb and be born? Yeshua answered, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of Elohim. That which is born for the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Marvel not that I say unto thee, ye must be born unto the wind, you must be born again. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh and whither it goeth. And everyone that is born of the Spirit. Nicodemus answered and said unto him, How can these things be? Yeshua answered and said unto him, Art thou a master of Israel, and knowest not these things? Verily, verily, I say unto thee, we speak that we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness. If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things? And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the man be lifted up, that whosoever believe in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever liveth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
Okay, so we see, working backwards, we see 14 where it talks about here, and as Moshe lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so the Son of Man, the son of Adam, has to be lifted up. so that whoever is believing in him should not perish but possesses everlasting life. And Numbers 21, we see the thing going on with the Yahweh instructing Moses to make this staff thing with the serpent on it for the people to look to and be healed from this plague that's going through the land, right? So we see here Yeshua connecting back things that we find in the Torah. We see these things being connected back to the Torah and being also connected to Yeshua and showing us Yeshua through the Torah. Now, when we go back to the beginning of the chapter, we see where Yeshua is speaking to this Pharisee, this man who's called a ruler of the Yahudim, and he has all these questions. And Yeshua says to him, in verse 10, "Are you a teacher of Israel, and you do not know this?" Right? These things that he's speaking to him about, these spiritual things that he's speaking to him about, Yeshua feels as if, as a teacher of Israel, he should know these things already. He should know about this distinction between the flesh and the spirit. He should know about the fact that we live in this carnal, fleshly body, and there needs to be a change in it for us to be able to be the people that we need to be, that Yahweh will have for us to be. So he goes through some of these things. He goes through the main, most important thing that there is to be. When we look back at verse 3, where Yeshua answers him and says, "Truly, truly, verily, verily, I say unto you, unless one is born from above, he is unable to see the reign of Elohim." And now we see Nicodemus here is looking at this thing that Yeshua is talking about from a physical perspective. Yeshua is speaking about these spiritual things. Nicodemus, this ruler of the Yahudim, is looking at this thing from a physical perspective. Born again, what you talking about? I'm supposed to go back into my mother's womb? Like I'm supposed to crawl back up in there? Like as a full-grown man? Like I'm old. Like how am I supposed to? We talking about reborn. Like what you even talking about? Right? He's thinking about this whole idea of being reborn, born from above, from a physical perspective. He's hearing the words of Yeshua and trying to connect them to things that are physical when what Yeshua is talking about is not physical. Yeshua, in his teachings, is trying to pull us away from the sensibilities, right? He's trying to pull us away from being driven by the flesh and carnality. He's showing here, you know, in this intimate setting, speaking to this person who he's saying you should know about these things. He's showing him and explaining to him the need for there to be this rebirth that happens. Verse 5, he says, unless one is born of water and the spirit, he's unable to enter into the reign of Elohim. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Now, again, we can still talk about the spirit of Esau, even right here. When we talk about the idea of being born of the flesh, we're all born of the flesh, right from the beginning. If we go down, that's verse 6. That which is born of the flesh is flesh. When we go down to verse, we didn't read this part, but if we go down to verse 18, he who believes in him is not judged, but he who does not believe is judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only brought forth Son of Elohim. That's the same thing as saying he who is born in the flesh is flesh. If you're in the flesh, you're already judged, because you're in the flesh, because of the fact that you do not believe. You're not currently believing in Yeshua. Belief in Yeshua is the thing that causes you to be connected to the kingdom of Elohim, not your flesh. He's sitting up here talking about this thing about being born from above, right? And we have to think about this thing, especially in the climate that we're in, when we have so many people being taken over by this connection to carnality and this connection to the flesh. As we're at the end of the day, the flesh and carnality cannot connect you to Yahweh unless you're born of the Spirit. It says, of the water and the Spirit, you're unable to enter into the reign of Elohim. Yeah.
I was thinking about how when you're born of the flesh, how how the baby's in a sack of water. So, the water comes out, they're born with the water. And then remember how his whole body was caved in. You take your first breath, and then that kind of activates something in your body where you go from being a water dweller to a air dweller, Mm-hmm. Your heart, this midwife told me that the human heart, I think there's a chamber in the heart that when you take your first breath, it opens up, because until then, in the womb, the baby's blood doesn't really circulate the same way it circulates when they're alive, on Earth, Mm-hmm. And just all the changes that come when you take your first breath of air, even when you're born in the natural. Yeah. There's all these changes that the baby goes through.
So thinking about all of that, when we look at verse 5, where it says, unless one is born of the water and of the Spirit, he's unable to enter into the reign of Elohim. We could think about how being naturally born could look like being born of the water and of the Spirit, because the Spirit, the Ruach in the Hebrew, it means spirit, but it also means breath. It also means wind. So when we think about from a natural perspective, we can see that a baby being born is born of the water and breath, because you live in a sack of water your whole life, and then you come out of that sack of water. So you're born of water, and then air fills your lungs and you breathe that breath, that wind.
Oh, I know why. Because the heart, until the baby comes out, the oxygen comes from the placenta into the bloodstream, like directly. And so, that's how the circulation happens. But when the baby comes out and takes that first breath, the oxygen comes from the air the baby breathes, as opposed to the oxygen that's coming from the mother breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So the baby literally.
So it's getting oxygen on, like we take in oxygen, and then it goes into our bloodstream and goes throughout the body like that. As where a baby it skips the first step, and then it's already getting oxygenated blood through the mother. But I'm saying that there's a distinction being made by Yeshua here, where it's talking about this idea of being born of water and the spirit, where it's making the distinction between this as being a physical thing, and saying that this here thing is a spiritual thing, because that which is born of the flesh is flesh. That which is of the flesh is flesh. So that means everything that's connected to it, whether it be the placenta or the little sac that you're in, or the natural air that you're breathing, all of that is flesh. But that which is born of the spirit is spirit. So he's trying to explain this thing to Nicodemus, this ruler of the Yahudim, and he's like, how is this possible? Like, what is it that you're even talking about? Like, I can't even really fathom any of this, what you're saying, right? And so when we look down at verse 12, where it says, if you do not believe when I spoke to you about earthly matters, if you can't understand these physical things that I say, then how are you going to believe when I speak to you about heavenly matters? And here he's definitely dealing with some heavenly spiritual matters. And then he begins to describe himself and say who it is that he is, right? No one has gone up into heaven except he who came down from heaven, the Son of Man, his own self. He's literally saying here that he came down from the heavenlies, right? And then we have the most famous verse in the world, John 3:16, for Elohim so loved the world that he gave his only brought forth son, so that everyone who believes in him should not perish but possess everlasting life. Okay, so when we look at this verse, and first of all, when we understand that in the first place, Yeshua is trying to describe to Nicodemus here, trying to get him to look at things from a spiritual perspective. So if we look at this from a spiritual perspective, this John 3:16, and not a fleshly perspective, not a carnal perspective. When I look at this, when I see this word here, world, I don't see how it means anything other than world. Let's see what this says in there. What we see here in the Greek. He so loved the world. The cosmos.
I was watching a teacher on that, and he was saying how that this isn't for the Gentiles.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at. How do you get to that? because this word, which is talking about the universe and the order of the universe, the world, the arrangement of the world, the heavens and the earth. How do you get that understanding? And again, if we say that it is talking about a specific people, then it kind of negates the whole way that this conversation is going in the first place, because he's trying to pull Nicodemus away from a carnal thought and bring him into a spiritual thought. So he's trying to cause him to think about things from a spiritual perspective and not a physical perspective. And then when he gets down to this verse, now he's flipping back to a physical perspective. It don't make sense in the flow of what's going on to me.
Right. How he tried to explain it was that, God, that Yahweh tells us to come out of the world, and that he's basically going to destroy this world. So did he die for this world that he's going to destroy?
The physical world, the earth.
So he's saying that this is spiritual, and he didn't die for the physical, carnal, fleshly, all the heathens and whatnot that are basically in this world system. He didn't die for them. He died for those who are going to be in this new world.
But the problem with that is we have to think about the fact that Yeshua, when we look at Yeshua, he had a message. And to think about his message from a general perspective, he wanted to get people from a particular mindset and bring them over into a different one. He wanted to take a look at these people who were walking in unrighteousness and cause them then to walk in righteousness. He wanted for these people to come out of this world system and come into this system that's connected to the kingdom of Elohim. But until they did that, until they made that transition, until they made that conversion, they was over on the other side. They're connected with the world, the thing that's going to be destroyed. So in other words, you could say, until you change teams, until you switch to this other team, you're going to be condemned. And he did say that. You're already condemned by just the simple fact of you being in the flesh. You're condemned until you believe, until you are believing, until you're in the process of believing in Yeshua. 17. For Elohim sent not his son into the world to condemn the world, but the world through him might be saved. 18. He that believed on him is not condemned, but he that believed not is condemned already. You already condemned. That's the world. That's the ones who don't believe. But you could be one of those ones who are condemned and come out of condemnation through believing in Yeshua, through looking towards Yeshua, just like Israel looked towards that serpent that Moses held up on the staff.
Well, there's a lot of people that, believe in Yeshua. They say, "Oh, I believe in Jesus."
Right.
And I just bless my pork. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He takes care of it all. He cleans it all up.
But we have to understand, I think that's the problem when we think about, this word here. When we think about this word here, pistis, faith, to believe, right, in the Greek. We think about it in a way that causes us to think that this is like some kind of a like a mental thing only, like it's something that happens in my mind. But I use this example all the time. If I say that I believe or have faith in the chair, me saying that is all well and good. But if I'm not willing to actually sit in the chair and see if that weight, if my weight is able to be held up by the legs of that chair and trust in the chair and actually sit in it, that's not faith. So when we look at what like James is talking about as far as faith without works is dead, right? If I say that I have faith, but there's no manifestation of what I said, I say that I believe his chair will hold me up, but I won't sit in it, then that's not faith. So when we talk about these people who say that they believe in Jesus, they say that they believe in the Son of the Creator, right? But there's no connection to his teachings. There's no connection to the things that he says that he wants for you to do. That's not believing.
I went to a church on Wednesday, and it was a pastor. Now, to me, it could be a medical condition, but the pastor was almost 300 pounds, and he believes. But it looked to me like he might be a glutton. I ain't judging him, but he said, and he even in his message, he said he loves things, and I'm sure one of those things. I don't know about pork, but it's food. And he had it was a decent little message he put together. But they believe, man, and they're doing all kind of things that just don't line up with.
Right. Which is the point. So when we look at this, when we talk about the idea of believing, it's not something that just goes on in your head only. It's a lifestyle. It's like what we see with the foundation, with Torah. When we look, and them people said, if whatever you say, I'll do. But if they would have just said whatever you say, I'll do, but then they don't do none of it, then they done already walked outside of where they're supposed to be at in the first place. This is not a new thing here. It's not a new thing. Yahweh calls for his people to walk in a certain way. What we have through Yeshua is the way back in, since we've been disconnected from the Almighty. But then once we get back in again, now it's back to walking in the ways that Yahweh has prescribed for us. So lest we connect what Yeshua has done for us with the foundation, lest we connect these things together, we miss the whole point. If we have the so-called New Testament in and of itself, and all we know of in terms of believing is just how we think about it. Well, all I gotta do is believe that he died, that he came and he lived and he died and he rose, he died for my sins and rose again on the third day. That's all I gotta believe. And for justification's sake, that is what you believe. You believe in that. But when you look at this idea of believing or faith or faithing, it's like a continual situation. Just like the chair. When we think about Yeshua and our relationship with Yeshua, if we say that he is our Lord and Master, that's something that's ongoing. It's something that continues, where he continues to be my Lord and Master. A lot of times when we look at people in their relationship with Yeshua, he was only your Lord when he needed to pick you up out of the dirt. But after he cleaned you up and put the new white garments on you and set you on your way, if you just jump back into the dirt, what is it that he's done? Right? And this is the point, this is the place that we have to get to as far as understanding what Yeshua came to do. He came to do a thing that he only had to do one time. But that thing that he did only one time, we have to walk in that continually and even revisit what he's done for us continually. Even though he done it one time, we keep on going back to that place where that place of redemption, that place of salvation, because he's keeping us in a way. He's keeping us in a life of righteousness. When we go down and we look how it talks about in verse 19, and this is the condemnation: the light is come into the world, and the men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. The way that we look and see and how we're connected to the world, the thing that we're supposed to be separated from, is through our deeds. When we have these evil deeds, it's a manifestation of us being connected to darkness and being connected to the world. So the opposite of that is walking in light, which is Yeshua. So if we say that we believe in Yeshua, we should be walking in light and not darkness. And then our deeds should not be evil, but should be good. So we can't be disconnected. There can't be a disconnect from our belief in Yeshua and our actions. That just doesn't make any sense. That is what is called Gnosticism, is when your physical actions don't affect your spirituality, where you can just do whatever you want in the flesh because we're spiritual anyway. So we don't even got to worry about what's going on in the flesh, what we do, because that don't touch the spiritual. But that is not what Yeshua here is talking about with these red letters. There's a direct correlation between evil and wickedness and your deeds and being in darkness and being in the world. And the fact that what he has come to do is to not only bring the light, but cause us to be light and be separated from the world and from darkness. Verse 20 says, for everyone that does evil hates the light, neither comes to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. Right? So there should be a change in those evil deeds when you come to the light. So, this is an obvious disconnect when we look at these people who say they believe in Yeshua, but it's not able to be seen and manifest through their actions. Verse 21, but he that does the truth, he that doeth or does truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in Elohim. This to me is key. When we look at this whole thing with Yeshua and what he has come to do, is that the spirit that is inside of those that believe, there has to be a manifestation of that. Right? And it's the same thing when we look back at Moses and Aaron. Same thing we think about the spirit of Esau is that the spirit of Yahweh must actually change us from the inside out, right? When we experience the spirit of the Almighty, the point of it is not for us to just know things. The point of it is for us to actually be changed and be led and guided by the Spirit, and not be led and guided by the earth and our sensibilities and the world and the darkness and the deeds of evil. Okay, so are there any thoughts or comments on any of that? Okay, that being said, I think for now we will go ahead and stop the broadcast. Okay. All right, so